Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. Out of all the subclasses, I've been most excited for Arc 3.0. As a filthy Thundercrash Titan main and a desire for the neutral game of that class to improve, I've kept watch on my calendar for Arc 3.0 to finally drop, and thankfully we're only 1 month away from getting our hands on some new electrical powers. That said, with the revitalization of the subclass also comes new synergies with Arc elemental weapons. We've seen this through Stasis, Void, and Solar 3.0, and there's no reason to assume we won't with Arc. Bungie's been heavily leaning towards matching your subclass with the element of your weapons for build crafting these past 2 years, so it just makes sense. With that said, today we're going to be taking a look at the top must-have weapons for Arc 3.0, featuring over 25 weapons total thanks to honorable mentions, to give you guys plenty of options to choose from. Now, before we jump into it, I got a pretty hefty announcement to make, and that is, as of today, the channel is officially sponsored by Advanced GG. And to celebrate the partnership, Advanced wanted to welcome you guys with open arms, so from now until the 27th of the month, you can use code demonjoefrance at checkout for, 30% off on your order. If you do pick up anything, please make sure to tweet me on Twitter, because it's the least that I could do is to shout you guys in videos for going the extra mile to support the channel. If you're curious as to what my personal favorite flavors are, I don't think there is a person in the world that would dislike strawberry lemonade. This is an insane flavor, and if you don't like caffeine and you still want something good filled with electrolytes and all that, then peach mango. I've been drinking this at the gym the past few days. I really love it. Advanced also gave me, just between you and me, $400 worth of gift cards, so I'll probably be giving those out over on Twitch and Twitter. They've really gone the extra mile to try to get you guys involved and really wanting to give to the community, so I'm really happy to be working with them, and I hope you guys are as well, because my previous sponsor, G Fuel, obviously you guys know that I terminated my contract not too long ago because, to be blunt, they are a shit company. So I hope you guys embrace Advanced with open arms. They've gone the extra mile to support the community and all that kind of stuff, and they're definitely going to play a big part in the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy the video. Be honest with me. You skipped that sponsorship announcement, didn't you? You mosey your lazy ass back, and you watch it, damn it, because it was a very cool moment for the... Oh, you watched it? Oh, my bad. Anyways, as usual, we're going to be taking a look at these weapons by weapon category, going over how to get them, their best roles, and etc. So let's go ahead and kick things off with Arc heavy weapons. Starting off with the heavy weapons, here we have the Storm Chaser Linear Fusion, the most slept on Machine Gun Fine Memorial, and finally the Hothead Rocket Launcher. Kicking things off with Storm Chaser, you guys already know why it's good. Just farm duality for a Clown Frenzy for anything outside of a raid, and a Clown Firing Line for raid content. Boom, next weapon. Next up, I want to talk about a Fine Memorial, because this machine gun just feels like it's been under the radar for a millennium now. This 450 RPM is farmable from the moon and can roll with perks like autoloading, Clown, Subsistence, and Field Prep in the first column, with the final column having Demo, Adrenaline, Wellspring, Frenzy, and One for All. A nutty combination of perks there across the board, and since machine guns did get a buff not too long ago, a damage perk really isn't necessary here, so Wellspring and Demo are probably worth focusing for Arc 3.0, making this a weapon that you definitely want to look out for. Finally, for heavy weapons, we have the Hothead Rocket, which is pretty notable given the rocket archetype buffs recently. Field Prep Lasting or Field Prep Explosive is definitely the play here, and if I'm not mistaken, this weapon's being rotated out of the Nightfall loot pool at the end of the season, so make sure you grab it up. Onward to some primary weapons for the video, let's talk about two hand cannons that are absolutely top picks for any kind of PvE content, and that is the Cantata 57 and Nation of Beasts. Starting off with Cantata, this is technically the better of the two 140s, as it can roll with Rapid Hit and Time Payload. Rapid Hit just being a more consistent reload perk, Time Payload having slightly more damage than what Nation has to offer. The negative with Cantata, however, is that the weapon is a world loot drop, making it all kinds of annoying to get your hands on a god roll, and that's kind of where Nation comes into play. Nation is just an absolute classic hand cannon, almost on the same level of Fatebringer in terms of legacy, but not quite, and it can roll with either the intrinsic setup of Outlaw Dragonfly or the better roll Outlaw Explosive Payload. And you guys know how I feel about payload. I'd much rather have a flat 11 to 15% damage bonus to every single shot that I fire, as opposed to only sometimes hitting enemies with Dragonfly explosions. So Nation is a raid weapon from Last Wish, and is actually farmable whenever Last Wish is the featured raid, making Nation a much more viable arc hand cannon to get a god roll on compared to Cantata. Since we talked about hand cannons, I figured figured it was only right to speak on their cousins, the sidearms. So here we have the Trespasser Exotic Sidearm, as well as the Trials Forgiveness. So starting with Trespasser, this exotic is free for all players. Those who buy the Season Pass get it outright, but free players need to grind up the Season Pass and make sure that you don't miss out on Trespasser, because if you don't get it through the Season Pass this season, then you end up having to pay money to get it, and it's just too good of a weapon to just miss out on. Just know that this sidearm is probably the best casual content sidearm that we've ever had. It literally just deletes enemies off your screen at the click of a button. Moving on over to Forgiveness, this legendary sidearm is a 2-burst aggressive. It can roll with a ridiculous combo of Demo Adrenaline, and this perk roll has ARC 3.0 written all over it. So if you're a sidearm enjoyer, don't skip out on Forgiveness, but it does come from Trials, so I really don't blame you. Trespasser might be your play. Now, moving on, let's talk about a weapon category that's a little bit more my style, the auto rifles. Here we have the Battleground Sweet Sorrow 720, the Crucible Sorrows Verse 600, and the often forgotten Arc Logic 600 from the Moon. Starting off with Sweet Sorrow, this is probably my favorite craftable weapon in the game. I've used this bad boy in so many GMs since I first got it, and it stood by my side and mowed down aliens like they were nothing. Stats for all and one for all is what you're looking for here, as the crazy damage boost and reload boost that you get combined with 720 rounds a minute is absolutely bonkers. Of course, if 720s aren't up your alley, you of course have the Sorrow's Verse from Crucible, or if you're like me, you bought a really good roll from 𝗔𝗗𝗩 not too long ago, so you don't got to deal with that. But either way, it's a good auto. You do have to play PvP to get it, and it has this many perks, and for those wondering, this many are good. Lastly, if you're not wanting to play PvP and dance around with RNG, we have the Moon Auto Rifle, the Arc Logic. Did anyone else forget about this thing? Because literally only a few days ago I remember it existed, and honestly it's such a good overall weapon. Subsistence or Overflow paired with Frenzy is just such a good combination, but you also have options like Demo or Wellspring to incorporate more subclass 3.0 into your gameplay. Super solid auto rifle, and one that's fairly slept on nowadays. Now, moving on, just like we did earlier with hand cannons, let's talk about the cousins to the auto rifles, the submachine guns. Here we have the Risk Runner Exotic SMG and the 𝗍𝗄𝗏 SMG. Starting off with the Risk Runner, I'm going to do the same thing I did with Storm Chaser. You guys already know this is one of the greatest exotics in the game. Hell, this gun is single-handedly the reason that I didn't feature Thunderlord in this video, because this weapon does what Thunderlord does, but better, because it's a primary weapon, doesn't require heavy ammo, chains lightning, and everything in between. You better have this on your Guardian come Arc 3.0 in the new season, or we're just gonna have to throw some hands. Now, stepping down to the legendaries, or, you know, the only one here, we have the 𝗍𝗑𝗏 SMG, and although Warmind cells are now shallow versions of their former selves, the 𝗍𝗑𝗏 SMG stands atop as one of the greatest SMGs in the game, hands down. You can get this bad boy from select weeks of Dares of Eternity, it's just kind of dependent on the rotation, but this weapon has a great overall feel, damage output, good stats, and perks like Threat Detector, Subsistence combined with Surrounded or Demo. You're just looking at a really reliable and overall top tier SMG. Now, since we talked about a close range weapon type, we might as well stick with the theme. So next up, we have swords/glaives. Here we have the Hero of Ages, Half-Truths, and Nezarec's Whisper. First up, we of course have Hero of Ages. This badass claymore has gotten through the Grasp of Avarice and can roll with Demo and Chain Reaction, essentially meaning get up close, chop away and explode some enemies, and get tons of grenade energy in the process, profit. It doesn't really get much better than that as far as weapons for Arc 3.0 go, and if you haven't already given the sword a try, then you should. It's an absolute blast. See what I did there? Anyways, moving on from Hero of Ages, we have the Blue Yeeter 9000, aka the Half-Truths from Dares of Eternity. Give the sword with Eager Edge and you're good. Okay, moving on, we have the Nezarec's Whisper. Now, this glaive, otherwise known as the Grenade Glaive, is the perfect companion come Arc 3.0 because glaives just got buffed to feel really good inside PvE, and this one can roll with Demolitionist and Frenzy. Probably my favorite glaive in the game overall, and when Arc 3.0 drops, I hope that subclass rework heightens the potential of this weapon even more, because glaives to this day are still slept on, but man, Nezarec's is an absolute shining beacon in that weapon type. Up next, from our powerful bladed buddies, let's keep it primitive and talk about combat bows for a bit. Here we have the Trinity Ghoul exotic bow and literally every arc bow because they're good, so I'm just going to include them. Starting with Trinity, obviously you guys know about this weapon. Kill an enemy, your next arrow becomes charged, you can chain lightning to multiple other enemies, yada yada. This weapon, just like Risk Runner, is just another reason that Thunderlord isn't featured. It's genuinely just a monster for ad clear, and even holds its own as a really good bow in GM content, thanks to the exotic weapon buff a while back. Now, moving on over to the legendaries and just talking about them real quick, let's first start off with the easiest one to get, which is Point of the Stag. You can just buy this from the kiosk in the tower, and it comes with a really good roll for Grandmasters, Archers, and Vorpal weapon. If you want something a bit better though, and a little bit more universal, we have the Wolf Tone Draw, which if you didn't get during Season of the Lost, then you better hope that Xur sells one that like doesn't have a blast radius masterwork on it. It's a really good arc bow. Unfortunately, you know, like I said, you're really gonna have to rely on Xur, but if you could get an Archer's Frenzy roll, it's absolutely fantastic. And lastly, for the bows, we have a weapon which I don't even know can drop anymore, maybe from dares, and that's the Arsenic Bite 4B. This bow can roll double damage perks in the form of Rampage or Dragonfly combined with Explosive Head, and is a fairly rare and super unique bow to have on hand. If you have this bow for yourself with a good roll, pat yourself on the back, because I see this weapon less and less as time goes on. Continuing on with the family related jokes, like we're in Alabama, combat bows and scout rifles are both long range, so they must be family or at least stepsister and brother. So taking a look at these scout rifles for the video, we have the Contingency Plan as well as the Eternal Blazon. Different strokes for different folks is the name of the game here, as Contingency Plan is the ideal scout if you're looking for something that just is intrinsically full auto. This gun can roll Outlaw or Subsistence combined with Frenzy or One for All, which is really nice, and it's been my go-to arc scout for a while, as it's super easy to use in GM content while also being very effective. Your other option here, Eternal Blazon, is for my 200 RPM enjoyers out there, but unfortunately this weapon does not have the beloved payload perk. Instead it rolls Overflow or Rapid It combined with Kill Clip or One for All, so if that sounds right up your alley, then Eternal Blazon is the one for you. For me though, the lack of payload perk is a bummer, so I stick with Contingency. Moving on from scout rifles, let's talk about the bursty boys, the pulse rifles. Here we have the 4-burst Insidious, the Darkest Before, and Horror's Least for my non-rating homies to pick up. Firstly, starting off with Insidious, this is my favorite pulse rifle in the game. Yeah, the sight looks like it's a Minecraft block, but it's a 4-burst, which I love. It can be crafted as it's a Val weapon, and it can roll with either Demo or Dragonfly in the first column, allowing it to be paired with One for All or Vorpal for GMs. It's a super great weapon, and I'll never stop loving this thing. Next though, we have the Darkest Before for those that don't raid. This rapid fire comes from Prophecy. It can roll Overflow, One for All. I'll probably never get a good roll on this weapon for as long as I live, but maybe, just maybe, I won't have to, because Horror's Least is also here, and it's fairly similar. This one is for my homies that don't raid or dungeon dwell, as it drops from Nightfalls and it can roll with Perpetual Frenzy, which is quite the respectable roll. The reason I care so much about these pulses, by the way, is because I absolutely adore the way they feel and handle, and I've always wanted a good one. Rapid fire pulses just feel really good, and if you're not really up for the clunkier playstyle as a 4-burst, these are some really solid arc pulses to get your hands on. Moving on from pulses, we have grenade launchers. Salvager Salvo from a Ritual Quest and Forbearance from Val. Salvagers shoots nade that goes boom and chains those booms and allows you to load 2 booms into 1 magazine. Forbearance shoots nade that goes boom but across the ground and towards enemies. And with a chain reaction and ambitious assassin roll, it too can chain booms and load 2 booms into 1 mag. Big recommend, best GLs in the game, and they're both arc. If you don't have them, get them. And to finally end things off for the video, I paired together a category of shoddy snipers to pay homage to Bungie's Halo days. Here we have the Gallu RR3 and Adored Snipers, as well as the First In Last Out. And to just quickly go over them, Gallu is a World Loot adaptive frame with a fairly good sustained DPS roll of Overflow Focus Fury, with Adored being a much easier to obtain Ritual Sniper that has triple tap and Vorpal intrinsically on it. And then of course we have one of the greatest slug shotguns to exist, the First In Last Out, which can roll auto-loading Vorpal and is the perfect energy slug to keep at your side. With all that said, ladies and gentlemen, we near the end of my almost 3,000 word script. I hope you all enjoyed yourselves today as we took a look at the best arc weapons that Destiny has to offer. I know there's probably going to be some that I missed. If there is a weapon that I missed that you feel really should have been on the list, drop it in the comments. If you don't though, and you completely agree with me, just tell me your favorite mid-afternoon snack in the comments. I would greatly appreciate some new recipes. Anyways, that's going to do it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed the content, and as always, thank you all so much for watching to the end of the video, as it really helps out the channel. As usual, big shout out to my Patreon supporters, which help keep the channel alive, as well as a thank you to my tier 2 patrons, Homebase Serenity, Admis, Vile, John, and Onrock, and my tier 3 patrons, 𝘁𝗵𝗄, Austin, and 𝗵𝗨𝗍𝗓. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time.